All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have our last mono-colored commander, Ayara, first of Locthwain. 3 black mana for a legendary creature, Elf Noble. She is the commander of this Brawl deck on MTG Arena. So whenever Arya, first of Locthwain, or another black creature enters the battlefield under my control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life, and then you sacrifice a black creature to draw a card. So it's a card draw engine, win condition, fun, control-y, mono black creature based deck. With the 1-drops, we have a couple. We have the Sanitarium skeleton, so when you get to 4 mana, you can make this kind of an engine. It also blocks really well. 1 mana for a 1/2 skeleton, and you can play a black and 2 colorless to return it from the graveyard to your hand. Foulmire Knight. It is one of those adventure cards where you can play it as an instant or sorcery and then as a creature. So for 1 black and 2 colorless instant, draw 2 cards, or draw a card, lose a life, or you have a 1 mana 1/1 with Death Touch. At 2 mana, we have Timuret, the Chosen from Death. 2 black mana. So in some ways, this deck is kind of a devotion deck, as you'll see in the upcoming card, or one of the main cards that's a really good win condition. Its toughness is equal to your devotion to black. So it's a 2 mana 2/2 by itself. You can play 1 black and a colorless and exile up to 2 target cards from a graveyard, and you gain 1 life for each creature card exiled this way. It helps control the opponent's graveyard. Piper of the Swarm, 1 black and a colorless for a human warlock. Rats have menace. You can pay 1 and a black to tap it to create a black rat, 1/1, or you can pay 2 black and 2 colorless, sacrificing 3 of those rats, or a rat of any other kind. This deck doesn't feature that, to gain control of target creature, and it is a 1/3 at base. Then we have Null Priest of Oblivion, 1 black, 1 colorless, as menace and lifelink. It's a 2/1. You can have a kicker of 3 colorless and a black, so you can add that to the converted mana cost when you cast it, and you can return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Tabarax, Hope's Demise, a 1 black 2 colorless for a 2/2 flying legendary creature, Demon Cleric. He has lifelink as long as it has 5 or more counters on it, and whenever another non-token creature you control dies, put a 1/1 counter on Torbax, and if that creature was a cleric, you may draw a card, and if you do, you lose 1 life. So in some ways, card draw, not so much, but it does its job. It gets bigger. Ghost Rider, 1 black 2 colorless for a 3/2 horror, and when it enters the battlefield you get a 0/1 goat. You can sacrifice a creature to scry 1, and it can escape from the graveyard by paying 2 black and 3 colorless and exiling 4 other cards from your graveyard. It enters the battlefield with 2 1/1 counters on it. Murderous Rider, another one of the adventure cards. You can play 2 black and a colorless to destroy target creature or planeswalker, and you lose 2 life, or you can play it as 2 black and a colorless afterwards as a 2/3 creature with lifelink, and whenever it dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. So kind of is a gift that keeps on giving. Nighthawk Scavenger, flying death touch lifelink. Its power and toughness equal to 1 plus the number of different card types among cards in your opponent's graveyards. Alright, so it's a 1/3 flyer at base, and it gets bigger as the game goes on. Then we have Erebos, Bleak Hearted. He's the god of in black, the mono black god. As long as your devotion to black is less than or equal to 5, he isn't a creature. It's indestructible. Whenever another creature you control dies, you can pay 2 life and draw a card. And you can pay a black and a colorless to sacrifice another creature, and a target creature gets -2, -1 until the end of turn. When it is a creature, it is a 5/6 indestructible, so it's pretty beefy. We have Rankle, Master of Pranks, 2 black mana, 2 colorless for a 3/3 flying haste, and whenever he deals combat damage to a player, you can choose any number of the following 3. Each player discards a card, each player loses 1 life and draws a card, each player sacrifices a creature. Hopefully at this time you have maybe your Sanitarium Skeleton or something that is worth sacrificing, and you can get something out of the way. You can draw a card and lose a life for both of you, or if you want to get something in the graveyard to maybe reanimate, you can do that. Solemn Simulacrum, black ramp. That's not an artifact. It is an artifact creature, but it's not like Arcane Signet. When it enters the battlefield, search for a basic land, put it into play, tap, shuffle your library, and then when it dies, draw a card. Then we have Sir Conrad the Grim, 2 black and 3 generic mana for a 5/4 legendary creature, human knight. So whenever another creature dies, or a creature card is put into the graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. So the deck kind of synergizes together with things dying or coming out of its graveyard. And you can pay 1 black and a generic mana to have each player mill the top card of their library, so put it into the graveyard. Soul Hunter Rakshasa. It can't block, but it's a 5 mana 5/5, so it attacks really well. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, it deals 1 damage to target opponent for each swamp you control. So the deck has 21 swamps, so it can deal a lot of damage late game. Grey Merchant of Asphodel. This is a great mono black card, especially with a deck that has so many black mana symbols amongst its creatures and permanents. So when it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black, and you gain life equal to the life that is lost this way. A 2 or a 5 mana 2/4 that ends the game, or at least gets you far enough ahead that you can get under control, and maybe if you can do it once or twice, the game is over. Drana, the Last Blood Chief, 2 black, 3 colorless for a 4/4 flyer. And when Drana, the Last Chief, attacks, the defending player chooses a non-legendary creature in your graveyard, and they can return it to the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it. Now this creature is also a vampire. And we have the Mighty Massacre Worm, one of the only real wraths in the deck. When it enters the battlefield, all your opponent's creatures get -2/-2 into the end of turn, and whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player loses 2 life. It's 6 mana for a 6/5 worm. So we're going to start into the instant sorceries and non-creature spells. Erebos' Invention or Intervention. Choose 1. Target creature gets -X/-X until the end of turn. You gain X life, so it's great against the aggro decks. You can kill something and gain life, or you can exile twice X target cards from graveyards, so you can slow down graveyard based decks. Omen's Death, 1 mana. The flash is really important here. Returning a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. There's so many good utility creatures in the deck that for 1 mana, being able to return something at the end of your opponent's turn to cast it again on your next turn is so big. And also Scry and black, a black and 2 colorless to Scry 2. Malakir Rebirth, one of the land spell cards. Early game, you can use it to produce mana, or middle to late game, you can return something to the battlefield when it dies. So you could sacrifice Grey Merchant, use this on Grey Merchant, return it to have Grey Merchant's effect happen twice. It's or if someone goes to kill something, you cast this at instant speed and bring your creature back. Blood Chief's Thirst. 1 black to kill something with converted mana cost 2 or less. If you played the kicker cost of a black and 2 colorless, you can destroy target creature or planeswalker instead. So 4 mana, destroy something. Pretty good. Amazing or Agonizing Remorse. Yes, it is amazing. Target player reveals their hand. You choose a no-land card from it. Exile it is very important. And also pick something out of their graveyard. So if they have one of those creatures that escapes, like the Woe Strider, you can exile that card from their graveyard and then it's gone forever. Feed the Swarm. Destroy target creature or enchantment. That's very important for black. Black doesn't get much, if any, enchantment removal. So being able to destroy an enchantment with this is extremely important. Forever Young. 1 black and 1 colorless. Put any number of target creature cards from your graveyard on the top of your library and draw a card. So worst comes to worst, it's 2 mana, draw a card. But like I said, the deck has many utility creatures, so being able to put some things on top of your deck, or even if it's just 1, and recasting it again is very valuable. Heartless Act. 1 black, 1 colorless for an instant. Choose 1, destroy target creature with no counters on it. Or you can mess with combat damage by removing 3 counters from target creature. Or I've had someone take off counters from my giant, the 3 mana colorless giant, and then that got rid of its first strike and then they traded. So it's very, the utility of it is very good. Arcane Signet. Pretty much in almost every single, if not every single deck in Brawl, you get 2 mana, tap it for 1 mana of any color of your commander's colors. We have Underworld Dreams starting at 3 mana, so 3 black mana. Whenever an opponent draws a card, Underworld Dreams deals 1 damage to that player. So it punishes the blue decks for drawing cards, and it fuels our Gray Merchant. Good old Murder. Destroy target creature for 3 black mana at instant speed. Another one of the land spells. Enters the battlefield tapped as Palaka Caverns, or you can have a target player reveal their hand. Choose a card with converted mana cost 3 or greater, and that player discards it. Inscription of Ruin. 1 black, 2 colorless. Or you can pay 2 black and 2 colorless on top of that, so 7 mana in total, and do all 3 of these things. But for 1 black and 2 colorless, you can have the opponent discard a card, 2 cards, so Mind Rot. Return target creature card with converted mana cost 2 or less. So there's not many in the deck, but it's something that's possible. Or destroying target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less. There are lots and lots of good creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less. So usually you're doing that, or you're getting them to discard 2 cards. For Boding Fruit, this will always be cast for Adamant, so you're always getting the food card token. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. So if they're at 2 life, you can target your opponent, have them draw their 2 cards, lose their 2 life, and win the game. So it is something I've done, and kind of fun way to win the game. Maybe we'll be able to do that when we get into our matches. Elspeth's Nightmare, a saga, level 1, destroy target creature an opponent controls with power 2 or less. 2, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. Number 3, exile target player opponent's graveyard. So gets rid of those pesky graveyard strategies. Bastion of Remembrance. So it's a 1 black, 2 colorless. When it enters the battlefield, you get a 1/1 white creature token. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Eat to Extinction. Exiling a creature or a planeswalker for 4 mana. You can look at the top card of your library. If you don't like it, you can put it in your graveyard. Drag to the Underworld. More often than not, this only costs 2 black. Instant speed, destroy target creature, similar to Murder. Hagra Mauling or Hagra Brood Pit. It can enter play tapped, or destroy target creature and it costs 1 less if an opponent controls no basic lands, which pretty much never happens in Standard or in Brawl, but maybe in other formats it does. So it's usually 4 mana, destroy target creature or a land. And the last card of the deck is Liliana, Walker of the Dead. So each player discards a card. Each opponent who can't loses 3 life, or -3. Target creature gets -X until the end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard. And -7 is you get an emblem at the beginning of combat on your turn. Put target creature card from a graveyard, so anywhere, under your control. It gains haste, and it is a 4 loyalty planeswalker. 21 swamps, Castle Locthwain. Pay 2 mana and a black, tap, draw a card, you lose life equal to the number of cards in your hand, or 1 black mana. All right, that is my Arya, or Ayara, first of Locthwain Brawl deck on MTG Arena. Thank you for watching this deck tech. If you enjoyed what you've seen, please consider hitting that like button and maybe subscribing to the channel if you want to see more Brawl content. Thanks again for watching, and have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night, wherever you are in the world. Thanks again. Bye for now.